It's time for another 5-Minute Friday. In just 5 minutes, I'll explain to you all principles in order to draw stylized arms. First, we need to understand cylinders really well. They will make up most part of our arm, albeit in a more manipulated form. We need to understand the simplest rendition of an arm, in this case a semi-sphere, and 2 cylinders, and their correct proportions. Once we know this, we should practice observing the figure, specifically the arm in this case, in as many angles as we can, and draw the simplified version of that arm that we're seeing in the reference. That's step 1. Now we should stop and first learn about form combinations. The reason for this is because it's important, because the arm is basically a combination of manipulated forms wedged together. So we need to understand this concept. Now, in order to improve this skill, we should practice what we call at Artwod form combination exercises. This can be box combinations, cylinder combinations, or cylinder and box combinations. Once we get the hang of this, we can move on to the next concept, which I love, form manipulation. Again, form manipulation is the bread and butter of fundamentals at Artwod, and they will help us transform boring cylinders into exciting shapes if we learn to inflate, taper, bend, or manipulate the contour of a certain form. We can really transform that shape into something really interesting. When we apply that to the simple forms of the arms, we can get much closer to the actual look and feel of an arm. At Artwod, we call this anatomy-informed shape manipulation. Quite a big word for such a simple concept. We just basically learn to transform simple forms into more interesting forms, following our knowledge of anatomy, or at least what we teach you. Now that we can do this, we repeat our practice of the first concept. So again, we're going to look at reference, and we're going to try and draw the mannequinized version of the arm in as many angles as we can. Again, this will improve our figure understanding drastically. It will improve our understanding of proportions, and most of all, our spatial awareness. And here's the kicker. Once we can do that, we're no longer bound to that reference, because we can now draw from imagination. We understand the simple forms that make up the arm, and we're free to design them in any way or angle that we like. So instead of adhering to the realistic proportions of the arm, we can now just exaggerate those proportions simply by exaggerating or manipulating the simple forms we just learned how to create. And that's exciting. With a little bit of practice, or a lot, we can start creating very believable stylistic arms without too much hassle. So make sure you practice it often. Go check out Artwod at artwod.com and tell a friend.